Well, fighting between Syrian government forces and foreign-backed militants still rages on across the war-torn country. The so-called Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says at least 26 civilians have been killed in clashes between Syrian troops and foreign-backed militants in the city of Aleppo. Syrian media say a man was killed and several injured after militants attacked a city in the Hama province with rockets and mortar shells. And in the central province of Homs, the Syrian Air Force launched strikes against Daesh positions. A number of terrorists were killed and some armored vehicles destroyed as a result. Several terrorists were also killed in separate attacks by the Syrian army against terrorists in the Dara'a province and the Damascus countryside. According to the February cessation of hostilities, terrorist groups such as ISIL and al-Nusra are exempted from the ceasefire deal. Let's cross over to Damascus and talk to our correspondent, Press TV's Mohammed Ali. Mohammed Ali, good to have you with us. Please fill us in a situation, though there's supposed to be a cessation in fighting in general. Of course, Daesh and the other terrorist groups continue to inflict damage. Tell us about the latest.
Yes, a number of foreign-backed militants attacked Syrian army positions and tried to infiltrate into Syrian army-controlled areas in Aleppo. This is considered the biggest attack by militants in the past 2 years over there. What happened was that a group of militant groups, some of which are considered as so-called moderate armed groups by some Western countries, mainly the so-called al-Zinki movement. Those militants attacked Syrian army positions at the direction of al-Rashidin in the western side of Aleppo city, trying to infiltrate into al-Assad suburbs, which is a Syrian army-controlled area in the city of Aleppo. The reason they tried to attack that area is that it is considered a gateway into Syrian government-held parts of Aleppo city. This is what the militants were trying to do. They were trying to infiltrate into those areas, especially that over there at al-Rashidin, what is close there is the Syrian Army's military academy. The militants were trying to get into those areas. However, the Syrian army was able to fully repel the attack and foil the entire attack by those militants, of course, in cooperation and with the help of Syrian fighter jets, which was pounding the positions of those militants and their backlines. Also, in parallel, there were other kind of attacks by militants inside the city of Aleppo, as tens of rockets and mortar shells hit residential quarters across government-held parts and residential parts of Aleppo, mainly Al-Nil Street. One woman was killed and six other people were killed. Also, speaking about the violations of the cessation of hostilities deal by militants in Hama countryside, northwestern countryside, particularly in Al-Sqailbiya, militants also attacked this particular village with 14 mortars, killing one person and injuring 4 others. Finally, we have to mention that according to the Russian Coordination Center for monitoring the cessation of hostilities deal, which started on the 27th of February, up till this moment, over 422 violations by armed groups have been registered.
And in general, Muhammad Ali, though, with the other groups who have come to the table, are they adhering to the ceasefire as best it has been monitored? Or tell me what's the story on that side?
Well, unfortunately, the cessation of hostilities deal have been violated so many times, as I told you, over 422 times by various militant groups. Some of them are actually considered by Western countries and by the U.S. as so-called moderate opposition groups, particularly and namely here we're speaking about terrorist groups that are known to be joining forces with the Qaeda-linked al-Nusra Front, particularly Jaish al-Islam and Ahrar al-Sham. Most of the violations are happening in Aleppo and around the city, also in Damascus. Unfortunately, there have been alarming reports and developments, especially since yesterday, when the cessation of hostilities was also violated by the militants inside Damascus on a wider scale, with a large number of mortar shells on residential quarters in Damascus. So mostly the cessation of hostilities deal is being violated mainly in Aleppo, Latakia countryside, and also now in Damascus.
Thank you so much for that update. Press TV's Mohammed Ali out of Damascus.